Hey guys, it's Whitney from All the Shelves. I am in a new spot. I'm in a studio now, like an actual real life studio. It's got like ridiculous amounts of lights. I'm in the spotlight right now. I feel like a little bit weird because I'm sort of set up in front of this white screen and I've got like a fake plant to try and make it at least a little bit more natural looking, although I don't think I'm fooling anybody. But my husband is splitting this studio space because he and a friend are starting a YouTube channel about like geek stuff, and so I'm kind of just like tagging along to film my booktube videos now, which is great because the reason I've been gone for so long is because of my new work schedule. I get home and then I only have like an hour of sunlight, and I'm in a basement apartment, so every time I film a video I've been getting like really discouraged about just like basically looking like Two-Face. So I think this is going to solve my lighting problems. We'll see how I like the whole, studio setting. But I am ready to jump back into YouTube. My job transition is basically over. I'm feeling really comfortable with teaching high school now. So I'm ready today to talk about a bunch of books that I've read over the past couple of months, and then I've got a whole schedule laid out for how these booktube videos are going to go. More of the same stuff, but just more regular from now on. I'm really excited to be back a part of the community, and thank you for sticking with me, even though I've been like very overwhelmed about, life changing type stuff, understandably, but I think I'm back now with my passions and my hobbies. In my last video, I mentioned that I recently read Zeroville by Steve Erickson. I listened to it on audiobook and it was just like this amazing experience. I loved it so much. So because I loved that book so much, I read the book Tours of the Black Clock by Steve Erickson. This one is about a man who becomes Hitler's personal pornographer, sort of on accident. He's like this like messed up kind of perverse kind of guy. He's got these desires that come out in very physical, tangible forms. Like he imagines that these desires are playing out in front of him, and then he just writes it up, and sort of coincidentally he's tapping into the same sort of desires that Hitler in the 30s and then early 40s has. And it's like this guy who is sort of, he's not immoral necessarily, maybe, but he's amoral, just like how his life proceeds. And Steve Erickson is like this weird kind of postmodern writer. Things jump around in time, and there's like a lot of like fluid kind of prose sometimes, and then there are other times where it's very clear and there's like dialogue going back and forth, and it's just like any other novel. And so sometimes those scenes that are very descriptive and dialogue heavy sort of hit you and have like a real forceful impact, whereas like the dreamlike flowing narrative is just sort of washes over you, which has this great effect. So I loved Tours of the Black Clock, not so much as I loved Zeroville, which I think is just going to be in my top 5 for a very long time favorite novels. But the other one that I read by Steve Erickson is These Dreams of You, which is a book that starts in 2008, the night that Obama is elected president, which like, oh holy shit, I just got like a little emotional about that. Like any of us poor liberals on BookTube, am having a very hard time with this election. I'm not ready necessarily to talk about it yet with BookTube. I am definitely ready to talk nonstop about it to my friends, my husband, my congressman, my family, but not yet ready to film a video. But yeah, just thinking about this night in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected and we had our first black president, like that was a pretty amazing feeling. I remember like people out in the streets like cheering in Salt Lake City. It was very cool. Like banging pots and pans as though it was a New Year's Eve. It was awesome, and I'm getting like nostalgic and emotional, so we're gonna move on. Anyway, in this book, These Dreams of You, the man in it has an adopted African daughter. He's American, so she's like actually African American, right? And she's little, and she's like kind of like a brat, so they call her the Queen of Sheba. But the narrator has like a lot of anxiety about that, because every time he calls her Sheba in front of other people, he's like, "Ooh, am I a racist? I'm not sure." And that's kind of the theme of the whole book, is this guy trying to figure out if he's a racist or not. That one again, like I really liked it. The plot wasn't as striking as the other two, as Zeroville and Tours of the Black Clock. So I'm having even hard times remembering the particulars, but I remember really liking the themes, and he has a way of breaking up texts into little sections that I really, really like too, so that each section almost works on its own. Anyway, Steve Erickson, I'm going to continue to read all of his books and then hopefully do like an author sort of where to start with this author type video. In October, I participated in the Dewey's 24-hour read-along, which this is the first time I've done that. We had a vacation, like a 3-day break for school, and so I just felt like, yeah, sure, why not? I could spend 24 hours of this vacation reading. And one of the books that I read for that was Ghostland: An American History in Haunted Places. This just came out this year. Totally like right up my alley. It's written by like an academic type guy who is interested in ghosts but doesn't actually like fully believe in ghosts. Like there are little moments where he's like, I'm open to it, but you don't trust him. Like he's definitely like a scientifically minded, historically minded guy. So he's looking at places in the country that people have called haunted, and then he's trying to figure out like why we have these superstitions, particularly about these places. So one of the ones that was most interesting was he talked about the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, which is this giant mansion. I looked at pictures of it. I actually haven't been there because it's like so expensive to go. I know that's a stupid reason. I'm in San Jose all the time, but every time I'm just like, yeah, we could go to a movie for $8, or we could go to the Winchester Mystery House for $50. I'm gonna go with the movie. But I wanna go because it's this like amazing architectural feat where this woman, heir to the Winchester rifle money, right? She just basically underwent this architectural experiment where she just kept adding on to her house hundreds and hundreds of rooms. Maybe that's an exaggeration. I feel like, I mean, there's a ton of rooms. It's bigger than like a shopping mall, this house. And there's stairs that go nowhere, and there's doors that open into brick walls, and people are just like kind of creeped out by the house. And so he talks about, the author is Colin Dickey. Sorry, it's Colin Dickey. He talks about how maybe this house appears to be haunted because of the idea of a very rich and powerful woman basically undertaking this hobby just for the joy of working at a hobby, rather than some sort of like social work project which women are commonly associated with, or home building project, right? Like she wasn't building a home, she was building like a work of art or an experiment, and people were kind of freaked out by that. I just really liked how this book delved into history through the idea of the paranormal, because I'm interested in paranormal stuff, even though I like don't believe in any of it, if that makes sense. Like I'm interested in why people think that things are paranormal, and this book was like right up my alley. So I totally recommend Ghostland: An American History in Haunted Places, especially if you're looking for like fun nonfiction, but that's also informative and gives you a lot to talk about with friends. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you've heard me mention that I am in a 2-person BFF book club with my best friend, and this month was my best friend's choice, and she chose The Wake by Paul Kingsnorth. I was super intimidated by this pick. When she asked me if we could do this one, I almost wanted to say no, because I was in this job transition and I was reading like just not as much, and when I was reading sometimes it was a little bit fluffier stuff. So I was like, this book is written in a facsimile of Old English, like when the Normans invaded England, how the English were talking at the time. So it's not like accurate, but he tried to sort of like simplify that language so that when you're reading it, you have to read it out loud, at least for the first 20 pages. Like you have to at least think of it in your head instead of just glancing over words. So the reading was slow going for The Wake, but totally worth it. I've never read historical fiction that just like fully envelops you in this way. By reading it through their language, you are forced to see things like through their point of view, which I just think is fascinating, that like language can be that powerful. Because I read historical fiction where it's in like 2016 vernacular, and it just feels like we're forcing our contemporary feelings on how they might have felt, you know, back then, back in the day or whatever. This one does not do that, and it's also really interesting on their religion, this pagan transitioning into Christian moment. I think The Wake is so worth it. If you can devote the time and attention to it that you would need to fully understand it, you become immersed in it very quickly, and I think that you would like it if you gave it a try. at least find it interesting. At the end of September, Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run came out. I'm mentioning this briefly. I know I have been sort of teasing for a long time doing a Bruce Springsteen video, and that is still to come. Now I feel like I have enough choices to choose from where I could really give some great Bruce Springsteen reading recommendations, so I will have a top 5 video coming out in the next couple weeks. I swear to God I will do it. Actually, I will actually do it. But I just wanted to mention Born to Run because, like, obviously I loved it. Obviously it's going to be my favorite memoir ever because it's Bruce Springsteen. But even if you don't love Bruce Springsteen, it's so beautiful. He talks about his relationship to the church and the church's relationship to his family and then his relationship to his family. So how there's like this kind of triangle between him, his extended family, and the church. And then he talks about how his family's home was eventually paved over with the parking lot of the church, which I just found so profound. And he like finds a way to write about that very purposefully without sort of unpacking the themes for you in an obvious way, which is like Bruce Springsteen's forte. I mean, he's so good at that. And he talks about his depression. That's been the story that kind of has been going around with the reviews, but I cried like 5 times in this book. It was amazing how open he was about his life. And just as a little anecdote, recently I just heard about Bruce Springsteen being stranded on the side of the road on his motorcycle right outside of Freehold. I guess his motorcycle battery died. And this group of bikers pulled over and they saw him on the side of the road and they pulled over without even knowing that it was Bruce Springsteen. And then the head of this like biker gang is like, oh, holy shit, it's Bruce Springsteen. Like, this is so exciting. So they get all these pictures with them and he takes them to, or they take him to a bar and he like buys them a round of drinks. It's this great story, and they made a point in the article to say like, and they never talked about politics because it's probably likely that these guys in this biker gang and Bruce Springsteen might have slightly different politics. And this was like right after the election. I mean, it was kind of just like a corny story that gave me a little bit of hope. Unfortunately, the comment section on the article then delved into like the worst of humanity, as comment sections do, and I get what was coming to me for reading a comment section. I just loved that story. I loved this book. Even if you're not a fan, I think you should check it out. So that list of books makes it seem like I've been reading like really heavy stuff. Let me just give you an example of what I have been reading to try and get me through a transition when I haven't always felt like reading. One of those was Rainbow Rowell's Attachments. Totally not up my alley, not my usual cup of tea, whatever other cliches I want to throw out there. It's like a very typical romantic comedy about a guy who is monitoring emails in his office, and he like comes across these 2 women's emails and like finds them very interesting and starts reading them instead of reporting them to his boss, even though they're talking about things they shouldn't talk about. And very unrealistically, of course, he like falls in love with one of the people, even though he's never seen her, so he just loves her for her thoughts, you know. It's a cute little story. I think that's like my common experience with Rainbow Rowell is like, it's a cute little story, but it's not totally for me, even if it's super fun to read. So those are some of the books that I've been liking recently. I've read a lot more than that actually, but I just want to save them for another video when I finally wrap up November and I'm back on track with my wrap-ups. From now on, I will do every other week wrap-ups like I had been doing in the past. I like doing 2 a month so I can talk about each book for as long as I want without totally boring you. So thanks for sticking with this video. Thanks for sticking with my channel. Let me know how you've been doing, and I will talk to you later. See ya.